We're sort of about 150k or an hour and a half out of Alice Springs on the sort of northwest along the Tanami, and we're on the northern side of the West Macdonald Ranges. So we're about 2.8 million acres. We run about 32 to 35,000 head of cattle across the property, season depending. Years ago there was a lot of big droughts and there was not too many people understood stocking rates and stuff of the land, and then after droughts they'd put too many cattle on it and they've become big areas of scalded country, especially after bushfires, and then you get heavy rain and it'd wash the topsoil off the country.
I'm a hydrologist, so obviously drought's just part of my job. You know, we call them droughts, but it's just a natural part of the cycle, part of the landscape, part of the climate. We've changed things to make it worse. That heavy stocking has removed vegetation, and then suddenly you've got water just flowing through, dehydrating the landscape.
This rehydration project is funded from the Future Drought Fund. Charles Darwin University is providing different forms of in-kind support and house us, the Drought Hub, that are managing it. We've had enthusiastic uptake from the Hewitt Cattle Company, and they've provided a couple of their properties, Noatuma and Glen Helen. We've got the Central Land Council, so Desert Ranges earlier on, Arki and Tea Tree Station.
During the wet season, that's when we get heaps of rain, and so just the rain just goes through the river and doesn't even slow down. These are where the erosion starts.
The catchphrase is slow the flow. So we're basically trying to hold moisture up in the landscape. With these incised creeks, the water tends to just accumulate in the creeks and then run off downstream, which we don't want to happen. So we're providing little chocks in the creek to hold that water up and create a bit of a step, so the water held up behind one structure will reach the toe of the next structure, which protects that structure. So when the water flows over it, it lands on water, so it dissipates the energy, and that stops any erosion. And that storage of water allows a deposition of material, sediment, seed, organic matter into the creek line, back up to what it naturally would have been, which allows water to spill out over the floodplain. At the same time, we're building some structures a bit bigger, which actually brings the water up above the bank of the creek and actually spills it out into a contour, which takes it right out onto the floodplain. And that just makes the whole system a lot more resilient.
And I seen it one day in a field day, and I thought, well, one day hopefully I'll be able to, put something like that together with the help of the hub and the drought relief mob.
I think it's really important that we not just do it on one property, because dynamics of the hydrology is very different in different properties.
We're on Aileron Station, which is about 200 kilometres north of Alice Springs. So we've been working with the local ranger group that represents the local people. We've got the elders to come and have a look at this site. They talk about the rainbow serpent. And the rainbow serpent is water, and water is the most powerful force in this landscape. And if the water is going too fast and high energy or angry, as they would say, it will do damage. This fits in, really, I find, just perfectly with their traditional knowledge. So our outcome from this is the local ranger group develops all the skills needed so they can go and do it themselves. We took them out on the first day and we gave them half a day's training on their little bobcat of how to build structures, and then we had to go off. A couple of days later we heard that they'd been out and done more themselves.
So we want to start to get involved for our mob that can come along and show that experience as well.
It's quite early days yet. I guess in a way we've been lucky to have some strong rainfall in January, which tested the works that we've put in, and glad to say that the works have held up in the main very well. Over at Glen Helen, one of the works there is already showing massive results. It's just a simple ripline contour, which is in that rainfall event has trapped sediment and trapped seeds, and there's been growth around that within sort of 5 to 10 metres of that ripline, re-establishing pasture which was completely bare beforehand. There was damp areas for quite long periods after the rain, which wouldn't have been there before. Just feeling the dirt had a lot of moisture in it, so it's holding that water up more in the landscape than that water would have just gone straight down the creek.
We had a fair bit of rain here during the Christmas as well. I thought that's going to be washed away, but yeah, that's still the packing from the machinery actually pack it all there. And I noticed where it's been slow the river down. All the side of the long diet of the river start to come back a bit. So yeah, it's starting to getting that fertilised back into it.
One more.
So this project has been set up over the longer term to give us a very good handle on the economic returns.
The notion being, if you can spend a certain amount of money in diesel for a bulldozer and time to build a certain amount of earthwork, then how much land can you actually bring to a higher productivity from that? So getting that balance right, even if it ended up that it came out economically marginal, there's still a massive ecological gain.
The overarching goal of rehydrating landscapes, particularly in the rangelands, is to enable pastoralists to see that they can be sustainable and also be resilient to drought. The project's not about just doing one little demonstration, it's about providing the skill set as well. We're really factoring in the fact that drought happens and that we're just saying, okay, well, let's just make the landscape more resilient to that drought, and that means the pastoralists are more resilient to, and they can continue to operate and make the right decisions.
What we do here is important, but it is of no value unless we share it with other people and they learn and it helps them improve their land management.
It's a win-win for everyone. It's a win for the environment, and it's a win for us because we get more kilos on our beef because we've got more grass.
So the funds from the Future Drought Fund for this project I think have been critical, not just for here on these properties we're working on. I think hopefully we'll get some very significant outcomes. So the value of a project like this is really about demonstrating how we can scale up. Once we get up to large areas, tens of millions of hectares, if we can green up this landscape, it'll be cooler and it'll be wetter. If we can green up the centre of Australia, the Murray-Darling will get more rain. So at scale, we can actually come to have some control over climate change.